panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Join us for the Political Correction. We're here every Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is the Political Correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GB News.
Hi, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
And we're hosting a show right here on GB News, 9:30 a.m. till 12 p.m. every single weekday, called To The Point.
We're going to be talking about all the big issues that matter to you at home in Britain.
Absolutely, whether it's holding politicians to account, discussing what's taking place in the channel, banging on about law and order, we're not afraid to do the absolute lot of it.
Yes, and if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we'll be saying it.
Make sure you're here 9:30 a.m. till 12 p.m. every single weekday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
Good evening, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Michelle Dewberry and this is Dewbs & Co, the show where we'll get into the stories that have got you talking today. First up, COP26. I feel like I've been talking about it forever. Well, you'll be pleased to know it's finally gotten underway. Tens of thousands of all the supposedly great and the good have descended, gotta say many via their private jets, on rat-infested Glasgow. Here they are, they're going to talk about all things climate. But let me ask you this. This is the 26th one of these conferences, and the climate is still apparently in dire straits. Therefore, is COP26 actually going to make a jot of difference? And honour killings have risen a massive 81% in the past year. And that, by the way, is just the ones that are reported. How do we stop this? And as kids return to school in England, masks are back on the menu. What? Should they be? I'll give you a clue. My answer is no. But we'll have all that and more coming up. But first, the headlines.
I'm Polly Middlehurst, and these are your news headlines at 6 o'clock. As you've been hearing, Boris Johnson has urged world leaders to take action on climate change, telling them it's 1 minute to midnight. The Prime Minister was speaking on the opening day of the COP26 Climate Summit in Glasgow. Around 120 heads of state and government leaders saw the speech, including the US President Joe Biden, the French President Emmanuel Macron, and the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Environmentalist David Attenborough is also at COP26. He told delegates the time for action is now.
In my lifetime, I've witnessed a terrible decline. In yours, you could and should witness a wonderful recovery. That desperate hope, ladies and gentlemen, delegates, excellency, is why the world is looking to you and why you are here.
Well, within the last hour, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has announced the country will reach net zero by 2070, but that's 2 decades after the summit's target date. The Canadian Prime Minister, however, Justin Trudeau, told world leaders a pollution tax would help push down global emissions.
I call on other countries to do the same. Just as globally we've agreed to a minimum corporate tax, we must work together to ensure it is no longer free to pollute anywhere in the world.
President Macron is warning France could introduce more stringent port and border checks from tomorrow unless Britain eases its stance on the post-Brexit fishing row. The dispute comes after UK and Jersey authorities denied licences to French boats, arguing permission can only be given to those with a history of fishing in British waters. The Foreign Secretary Liz Truss says the UK could take legal action if the French don't back down. Downing Street says it has robust contingency plans in place if France disrupts trade from midnight. A 62-year-old man who preyed on a vulnerable teenager nearly 2 decades ago before killing her has been jailed for 18.5 years. For almost 20 years, Keith Hall denied that he had beaten 19-year-old Rachel Wilson to death before disposing of her body on farmland on the outskirts of Middlesbrough. In May, he admitted the manslaughter of the teenager who he forced into prostitution and drug use. The chief executive of Barclays Bank, Jess Staley, is stepping down from his role after a probe into his links with the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Barclays said they were made aware of some of the information into the investigation and were said to be disappointed but didn't provide details. The Financial Conduct Authority report makes no findings that Mr. Staley saw or was aware of any of Mr. Epstein's alleged crimes. A train driver involved in the Salisbury crash on Sunday is suffering life-changing injuries. British Transport Police have said there was no evidence the train struck an object before the crash. They confirmed there were no fatalities, but 13 people were taken to hospital for minor injuries. National Rail inquiries say disruption following the crash will continue to the network for several days to come. Protesters have carried coffins across London's Westminster Bridge to represent the deaths on smart motorways. Around 50 demonstrators marched to Parliament Square to demand a ban on all-lane running motorways, which can convert the hard shoulder into a live traffic lane. It's because of concerns about them after several fatal accidents involving stationary vehicles being hit from behind. Now, if you've had 2 jabs of the COVID vaccine and they were over 6 months ago, as of today, you don't need an appointment for your booster jab. The third injection is now being offered at walk-in clinics, the NHS aiming to increase jab uptake ahead of what they've described as a challenging few winter months ahead. NHS England says that more than 6 million people in the UK have already had their booster jab. And Oxford Languages has declared the word vax its word of the year for 2021. The organisation says that by September this year, it was used 72 times more frequently than the previous year. It comes after last year's report was expanded to reflect the unprecedented nature of 2020, with the word furlough and COVID-19 and the phrase Black Lives Matter among some of the most popular terms on the new list. You're bang up to date. I'm back in half an hour.
Thanks for that, Polly. Well, joining me to discuss the stories of the day on my panel, they've got the treat of being with me the whole evening. You lucky, lucky things, you. We have comedian Francis Foster, Tom Buick, who's an educational specialist, and you're new to this programme. Good evening to you. Ishmael Leah South, who's the director of the Salam Project, which is a black and minority ethnic youth and community initiative. You know the drill by now on this show, don't you? We're here, we have our views, but I like to know yours as well. A really important part of the programme for me is to know what you think about everything that we are discussing. You can get in touch with me on email, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet me at Michelle Dewbs or at GBNews. First up, the top story, COP26 Climate Summit in Glasgow. Well, let's get all the very latest from Darren McCaffrey, who's our political editor. He's live there. Darren, good evening to you. Bring us up with the latest
Michelle,
of what's happened today.
Yeah, well, today essentially is the first proper opening day of this COP summit. So we have seen more than 120 global leaders gather here with their thousands of delegates. And this is the start, though, of a prolonged set of negotiations that's going to extend for nearly 2 weeks in Glasgow. when the world leaders leave in a couple of days, it will be their delegates who try and thrash out a deal when it comes to tackling climate change. Now, what does that deal look like? What does it mean? Well, for Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, he argues it's actually about trying to keep another deal alive, and that is the aspiration of what was agreed in Paris back in 2015 to try and cap global temperature increases to 1.5 degrees. Now, that is at the moment looking pretty tricky, Michelle. Global temperatures are already up 1.2 degrees on the pre-industrial levels, and the expectation is that they will go significantly beyond that level if there is not some drastic action. Will there be drastic action? Well, again, that is what Boris Johnson, Joe Biden, Emmanuel Macron, many of the world leaders speaking here today would like to see, but not everyone is on the same page. We heard from Narendra Modi, the Indian Prime Minister today, suggesting that his country was not aiming to get to carbon neutrality by 2070. That's a whole 20 years later than where the United Nations would like the world to be. But at least he is here. President Xi of China, Vladimir Putin of Russia, President Bolsonaro of Brazil, President Erdogan of Turkey haven't even bothered to turn up.
Yeah, and who else has been speaking today, Darren, and anything of note that we should be paying attention to?
Yeah, just a couple of familiar names. Let me put, first of all, Prince Charles to you, the Prince of Wales. He's been here all day, having been at the G20 yesterday in Rome, again encouraging leaders to take action, saying we're in the last chance saloon when it comes to climate change, that it's not now about words but about actions. And his big idea is about trying to involve the private sector. He argues that this is going to cost potentially trillions of dollars worth of investment from across the globe, and countries and individuals cannot do that themselves, that they're going to need that investment from private companies. Jeff Bezos from Amazon, for example, and Bill Gates from Microsoft, two of the wealthiest men in the world, are here in Glasgow at this summit. And then we also heard today from Greta Thunberg. You remember her, that climate change activist. She is on the fringes, actually, of this conference, holding rallies with people in parks in Glasgow, saying that actually real leadership is not to be found inside COP26. She argues it's to be found with the people pushing for change, insisting that this conference will be another one of blah, blah, blah.
I found that quite interesting, actually. She was stood on the outside saying that we shouldn't really pay that much attention to those on the inside. Why was she on the outside and not the inside?
Well, I should say also she was inside, and she did meet people like Nicola Sturgeon later, but her big argument is that actually what's driving this climate change agenda is people, particularly young people, and we know that she led a pretty successful movement, hasn't she, of young people in different parts of Europe, and she would say actually it's leaders who are way behind where people are, that there are millions and millions of people across the world who want to see leaders and politicians act sooner than they are, and that leaders need to catch up with public opinion. Now, is that true? I'm not entirely sure it is. Clearly, there are lots of people around the world who actually think that maybe some of this is slightly alarmist when it comes to the predictions, or are not trustful about the figures involved in all of this, and are also concerned about the cost there may well be to trying to implement some of these radical changes to our lives through climate change. Though in response to that, and Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, has been asked about this several times, he says the UK is a good example of what can happen. He argues that carbon emissions in the UK have fallen 44% in the last 30 years, but actually GDP is up 78%. And that's a similar argument that Arnold Schwarzenegger, the former governor of California, has made about that state. He says that California's got some of the most stringent environmental laws in the world, and yet, if you take it out of the United States, would be the world's 5th biggest economy.
Darren, a final question to you before I let you go and enjoy the delights of Glasgow this evening. Tell me, what was the first impressions Glasgow delivered? We've seen a lot of talk about bin strikes, we've seen talk about rats. I've got to say, I saw some of the footage today of the security, the queues trying to get into the conference, and it looked absolute carnage. What's it like down there?
Yeah, it's not been the easiest, I think, of starts to this conference in Glasgow. You're right, in the last week we've had bin men go out on strike. In fact, they still are. there was at least some resolution to a possible train strike. There's been talk about 1.3 million rats roaming the streets, attacking refuge collectors. And then yesterday, lots of people couldn't physically get here because trains were stuck with trees on the line. Then when they did get here, the queues to get into this conference centre were pretty extensive, to the point where, I mean, it took us at least an hour to get in, though there are tens of thousands of people here. Accommodation is ridiculously expensive. Some people are having to commute from as far away as Newcastle and Edinburgh. So it has certainly not been an easy start to this conference. The one thing I would say, Michelle, is it has so far today not rained, and it's not due to rain here in Glasgow until the weekend, which in November, in anyone's book, is pretty good going.
Well, there you go. It's like the song says, things can only get better. I won't sing it for you. I'll save your ears, but you know the song I mean. Enjoy the rest of the conference. I'm sure I'll be speaking to you again very soon, Darren McCaffrey. Thank you. Now, Francis, as I mentioned in my intro, the 26th one of these things. You know, we're still sitting here saying that the climate is in absolute catastrophe mode. So then I kind of think to myself, well, what good as the previous 25 conferences done, and why is this one going to be the one that's going to sort out the world, basically, when it comes to the climate?
Well, it's a good point, and it's not only that, but you look at a lot of these leaders flying around by private jet, Prince Charles, etc., etc., and it very much seems to be it's one rule for us and another rule for you. And then you have celebrities like Joanna Lumley telling people that effectively their quality of life, ordinary working people, is going to go down. And you think to yourself, we've already been through a pandemic. People have already had to make a huge amount of sacrifice. You're essentially asking them to make an even higher level of sacrifice, and you don't seem to be compromising in any way, shape or form at all.
Yeah, and I've got to say, I'll come to Ishmael in a second, but I just want to show you, we talk about all these VIPs, these world leaders. Let's just have a look at one of them, see what he made of it. This is Joe Biden. There he is, taking part in one of the summit conferences. I've got to say, he looks a little bit tired. Looks to me like he's nodding off. Keep your eye on the lady as well behind. She can't help but have a bit of a yawn herself. And as we're watching this, I mean, I've got to say, this is pretty remarkable. I'll come to you, actually, Ishmael. He, to me, is falling asleep. In a second, someone's got to go over to him, and it looks like almost jolt him awake a little bit.
Yeah, but everyone knows this is not the first time Joe Biden has dropped to sleep, so it's nothing new. As Donald Trump used to call him Sleepy Joe, so there's no
Look, there's the...
there.
What, there we go, there he goes. But I find this astonishing.
Yeah, but the positive of this conference, I would say, as a person who works with young people, is that it positively engaged young people to be part of the conference.
What did? Joe Biden falling asleep?
No, not him, the actual conference itself, because we've got these protesters, these global extinction people, telling our young people to go, walk in the middle of the motorways, jump on top of a tube. I was on my way to do something in a school, and some young people went to jump on top of the tube, and thankfully, because it was in a bit of the inner cities, so people started to drag them down and say, listen, I've got work to go to, I've got no time for this rubbish, and they just kind of roughed them up and got away. But the thing is, I think this is a positive way of engaging young people who are very passionate about
what
climate
is this
change.
Conference?
Yes, because it's getting young people, showing them the right way by lobbying, by writing to your local MP, by using the democratic system. That's what this conference is promoting. To be, like I said before, I've never even heard of this conference, so I don't even know what happened to the previous 25. So this is the first time I'm hearing about it. But I know about the open calls they made for young people to come to Glasgow to attend, which I think is very important.
Right, well, do you think they're actually going to achieve anything though, Tom?
Well, we're hearing about it, aren't we, because it's here in the United Kingdom. But you know, on the point of young people, not very many young people will be in that conference. Obviously, Greta Thunberg appears to have got her way in to see the First Minister of Scotland. But it's back to Francis's point here about leadership versus hypocrisy. I mean, 30,000 delegates have chosen to take to the skies and arrive in Glasgow this week. When actually, if there's one thing that the pandemic has taught all of us when we were under lockdown and house arrest on 3 occasions in this country, is that you can perfectly conduct your meetings over Zoom. So what I don't understand is why didn't this particular Conference of the Parties, that's what COP stands for, actually take place virtually. That would have been demonstrating real leadership on behalf of all these delegations. Actually, you can find another way, reduce your carbon footprint and still look to strike an important deal about the future of the climate.
Yeah, but then they wouldn't have been able to enjoy Glaswegian hospitality, Tom.
What, and those rats chasing them down the road?
But what gets me, I've got to say, and we alluded to it with Darren a second ago, is when you actually look at who is guilty of creating the most pollution, so the most emissions, etc. You've got China, who are not even there, by the way. The president of China was supposed to do almost like a video message. He decided not even to do that. He's done a written statement. So that's China not there, President of Turkey not there, President of Russia not there, President of Brazil not there. So then it makes me think, hang on a second, if you need to create proper, sustainable change, you've got to have buy-in. If I think back to my business background, one of the most basic, it's like basic 101 of when you're trying to do any change project, it is stakeholder buy-in. You have to sit there, identify stakeholders and get them on board, because if you don't have them on board, you can sit there and you can plan the best things since sliced bread. It's not going to make a difference if the key people are not involved and engaged.
Well, I disagree, because you've got Britain there.
Get out. Can't disagree.
You've got Britain, you've got America, and you've got Canada. So I believe once Britain, America and Canada lead the way in this, the rest will follow.
So you think China, who is the biggest contributor of emissions, is going to sit there and say, I tell you what, because Joe Biden, Boris Johnson, because those guys are doing something, I shall follow. Do you seriously think that?
China is a different TV show. I'm talking about
But it's
Brazil.
it's the biggest.
Yes, but you still have Brazil and India. They will, once Britain, Canada and America start the ball rolling, Brazil and India will follow.
There is the question of leadership. I mean, I've got some sympathy with that view about China. After all, you know, within President Xi's lifetime, you know, he can still remember Chairman Mao and the Cultural Revolution that nearly killed, it did, it killed millions of Chinese people. So it does look a little preachy, doesn't it, of the West to say to the likes of India, that's been developing over the past 2 decades quite rapidly, as indeed as China, that it's time now for you to stop your own industrial revolution, because we've turned our back on our own industrial revolution and we want to just crack on with converting petrol combustion engines into electric cars. We want to put gas boilers out of business and put heat pumps into our home. The point is, it's going to take a long time. It's not going to take just 20 years, is it, to reverse climate change? It's going to take probably centuries. And in any case, should we be looking to reverse climate change, or should we be looking to adapt to what that means for various parts of the planet? Well,
you guys get in touch and let me know what you think. Do you think that COP26 is going to make a significant difference? I've got to say, I don't. I hope that I'm wrong. I don't mind being wrong, and I'm not afraid to admit it when I am. Time will tell. COP26 runs for 12 days. So if you're into the climate and into climate change, yes, you've got 12 more days of this. If you're not, sorry about that, because, yeah, indeed, we will be talking about the climate, I suspect, in these coming days, quite a lot. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'll be talking about a winter like no other. It makes me laugh because I am indeed talking about the NHS. The reason that it makes me laugh is because every single year there's something we've got to do to protect the NHS from basically collapsing at winter. This winter, it seems, is no different. We'll be talking about that and more after the break.
On Brazier at 8, as France seems bent on a fish war with Britain, we'll ask the man in charge of curating the memory of Margaret Thatcher about how she would have handbagged Emmanuel Macron. Also, confusion at COP26, why CNN seems to think that Edinburgh is really just a suburb of Glasgow, and why police have warned householders to tone down Halloween displays after complaints from the neighbours that things were getting too gory. That's Brazier from 8.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Join us for the political correction. We're here every Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is the political correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GB News.
Hi, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
And we're hosting a show right here on GB News, 9:30 a.m. till 12 p.m. every single weekday, called To The Point.
We're going to be talking about all the big issues that matter to you at home in Britain.
Absolutely, whether it's holding politicians to account, discussing what's taking place in the Channel, banging on about law and order, we're not afraid to do the absolute lot of it.
Yes, and if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we'll be saying it.
Make sure you're here 9:30 a.m. till 12 p.m. every single weekday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
Help us, help you. That's the latest message from the NHS England, designed to encourage us to use the 111 NHS helpline rather than going off to our local A&E department. NHS's England National Medical Director, Professor Stephen Powis, said the coming months are likely to be, I quote, extremely tough. This, of course, is because of pressures from the combination of COVID-19 and the seasonal flu. So I wonder, there's been a lot of conversation recently, hasn't there, about try and save the NHS, kind of don't use it if you don't really need to use it. People have then stayed at home and not used it. Missed diagnoses, all of that. It's still very tough, of course, to get into seeing your GP. There's talk about going to see the pharmacist in some areas. Maybe that's the answer. Or is it very simple? Is NHS 111 the answer? Tom?
Well, certainly 999 is not the answer when you consider that there was 1 million people who called it. So there's a problem, isn't there, at the heart of our society, that people obviously mix up acute care and the need for acute care with, everyday care. But that said, there's now a problem with our NHS, and you see it with the figures in terms of our GPs who are, in some cases, refusing to meet patients face to face. I mean, they certainly do want to reduce their carbon emissions by doing as many of these face-to-face consultations.
COP26 memo.
Well, maybe we should send a delegation of the BMA up there. They'll sort it all out in 2 days, never mind 2 weeks. But I do think it's time, isn't it, Michelle, for a debate in this country about what our, frankly, in my view, wonderful National Health Service is for. It was set up in 1948. It's free at the point of use. I wouldn't change that principle. But it cost 48 billion quid in the late 1940s.
But I have to push you back, though, when you say it's free at the point of use. That's this little strap line that everyone uses. It's free at the point of use. It's not free. You've paid for it using your national insurance contributions.
But what I mean by free at the point of use is that there's no barrier, and that's probably part of the debate we need to have. There is no barrier to booking an appointment with a GP. There's no financial barrier to rocking up at an A&E on a Sunday night seeking treatment for a migraine that perhaps could have been sorted out by just visiting your pharmacy. That's the point. And maybe, this campaign is a welcome one if what it's trying to do for all of us is re-educate when it's appropriate to go to acute care and when, frankly, you should be either seeking some help from a pharmacy or maybe, it's time to look at the whole GP system anyway, which we've had since the end of the Second World War. Is it really right now that you have to go and see a GP? Are there not other clinicians, qualified nurses in local walk-in centres that people could go and visit? Would that take some pressure off accident emergency as well?
Yeah, your thoughts, Ishmael?
My personal opinion is that I don't believe people should be deterred from going to the hospital if they feel sick or if they're worried about something. I believe we've got many trainee doctors, aspiring doctors in universities who, yes, they go to university 3 or 4 times a week. Instead of them sitting at home smoking and drinking and partying, they should be able to at least donate 1 or 2 days a week and volunteering for the National Health Service, whereby 1, they get work experience, and 2, they'll be helping the NHS, because people should not be deterred from going into the hospital because not everyone are patient enough to deal with the 111 system. I don't know about anyone else here, but when I've tried to use it, I find it very irritating, very long-winded, and not everyone wants to go on the internet. So I believe that we should utilise students and maybe make a campaign for people to volunteer for the NHS. And with regards to the NHS as well, I believe it's fine, but I believe there's too many bureaucratic departments.
You think the NHS is fine? It's creaking at the seams.
Yes, it's creaking. But what I'm saying, the problem is the bureaucracy. When we're hearing these that they get 48 billion and so forth, if we analyse how much is given to consultants, how many are given to consultancy companies for just coming to a meeting, so much bureaucracy and so much wastage. If that was cut short, so i.e. yourself, you know Alan Sugar, if we had someone with an Alan Sugar-esque...
Well, I don't like to name drop, but yeah, I do know it.
Yes. So I'm not saying him, but I'm saying someone like him was in charge of the NHS, and then he will get rid of lots of wastage. What we have, people in charge of the NHS, they have no understanding of business, of saving. They're just thinking, OK, we're getting the money from the government, let's just waste the money.
Oh, harsh-hitting words there.
So it needs to be more streamlined.
There you go. If you're an NHS manager and you're watching this, what do you think to that? Do you need my old boss, Alan Sugar, to get himself in there and sort it out? Your thoughts, Francis?
I think the real problem is, in this country, is that we treat the NHS as a religion. We all clap for it. We all, you saw the way that in the 2012 Olympics, it was celebrated. Yeah. And frankly, it seems that looking back 9 years later, look weird. They look weird, right? When you look at the way we were venerating it, OK? We can't have a sensible, sane and rational discussion about the NHS because people get emotional. They're like, oh, you want an American-style system? No, there's an alternative. And there are other alternatives. It needs reformation. We still need a national health service, but we can't have it in the model where every winter it creaks and it collapses under the weight of public demand.
But that's the really important discussion as a nation. After all, it is our National Health Service. I mean, I agree with you, we should be deifying the NHS, but equally, and what was fantastic about the opening ceremony, by the way, in 2012, is it was about also recognising that, the NHS is a great civilising achievement of this country. I mean, there's no doubt about that in my mind. The difference is, increasingly, if we're not careful, this country is becoming the National Health Service with a whole bunch of taxpayers attached to it. What we want is a National Health Service that's actually delivering effective healthcare. And that scary chart the Institute for Fiscal Studies published on the back of Rishi Sunak's budget that showed every single government department is still receiving below what it was receiving in 2010, apart from education that got a 2.8% real terms increase. What did the National Health Service get? A 42% increase on its budget. So it's consuming more and more of our taxes, more and more of our national wealth. Where's the debate about what kind of healthcare service we want for the future?
Yeah, and Ishmael, you say about wastage and stuff, and by the way, I agree with you in terms of there is wastage. I mean, in anything that big, you're going to have wastage, but there is a responsibility that we should have ourselves to look after our health and to try and value our health and respect our bodies and be in the best position that we can and then have the NHS. And I do think that too many of us kind of eat too much, smoke too much, drink too much, do whatever too much, and then just rely on this service that we all know is kind of, as I say, creaking at the seams. So maybe a bit of personal responsibility won't go amiss here.
Definitely personal responsibility, but at the end of the day, we pay for it. So it's not free. This is something that we pay for out of our hard-earned money. And like I said, I just believe the NHS needs to be streamlined. We need your old friend Alan Sugar type-esque character to come at the helms and get rid of the time wasters, the out of touch, out of date, the Arthur Dailies and the Del Boys.
Dailies?
I'm telling you.
Goodness me.
Apparently, he applied for one of those diversity officer jobs. He's getting paid £75,000 by the NHS.
It's ridiculous.
See, I do feel I've got to stand up for the NHS a little bit here. So both my mum and my sister are NHS nurses.
No,
so
for the record,
say,
sorry to interrupt you. For the record, I love the doctors and I love all the nurses.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I'm with you in terms of, I do think there's a lot of bureaucracy. Yes. I do think a lot of management, kind of management, duplication, all that kind of stuff. I think it's wrong. But I also also do just want to, because I know my mum will probably be watching this now, and I know how hard she works.
Yes.
And yeah, there's a lot of people there that do really work incredibly hard. And I just think that those people are often failed by the system of which they operate within. Get in touch with me and let me know your thoughts on that. If you get ill, I wonder, what would you do? I don't mean like, I'm not talking about if you get a cough or whatever. I'm talking about if you get ill where you need some kind of emergency support, what would you do? Would you go to NHS 111? Would you take yourself off to A&E? Would you be frightened to take yourself off to A&E whilst there's all these kind of COVID statistics that we're still fed every day? Get in touch with me. You can email gbviews@GBNews. And sorry, I didn't even give you the full address there. So excited was I to tell you what was coming up next. I forgot the end of the email address. It's gbviews@gbnews.uk. Get in touch, and you can tweet me as well, by the way, at Michelle Dewbs. Let me know your thoughts. Going to take a quick break, but coming up at 7 o'clock, it's Nigel Farage. He's joined by Michael Fabricant. I love his hair. Anyway, did I just say that out loud? I think I did, didn't I? Now, what I want to do is ask you after the break about masks in schools. I warn you, this is a topic I am very passionate about. So it's going to be hard to shut me up, and I suspect my panel as well will have some strong views. So don't go away. We'll have that and more coming up.
On Tonight Live, it's Mark Dolan in for Dan Wootton. My big question guest is one of the best-known politicians in the country, Neil Hamilton, the new leader of UKIP. We'll talk Boris, Brexit and global Britain, plus his life in the celebrity spotlight with the lovely Christine. Spurs are looking for a new manager, COVID cases are down, and the PM says it's 1 minute to midnight for the climate. We'll debate all of that. And in my monologue, when it comes to COVID and climate, I'll be calling out the shocking hypocrisy of the showbiz, political and media elite. See you at 9.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Join us for the political correction. We're here every Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is the political correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GB News.
Hi, I'm Patrick Christies.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
And we're hosting a show right here on GB News, 9:30 a.m. till 12 p.m. every single weekday. Call to the point.
We're going to be talking about all the big issues that matter to you at home in Britain.
Absolutely, whether it's holding politicians to account, discussing what's taking place in the Channel, banging on about law and order, we're not afraid to do the absolute lot of it.
Yes, and if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we'll be saying it.
Make sure you're here 9:30 a.m. till 12 p.m. every single weekday right here on GB News for To The Point.
Hello there, welcome back. Now, the number of honour-based abuse offences recorded by English police forces has soared over the past 5 years. This is according to recent figures. Data from 28 out of 39 police forces in the UK found that offences such as rape, death threats and assault rose 81% last year. I do have to point out, though, that Greater Manchester Police didn't submit their numbers because, apparently, of a new IT system. So if you ask me, these numbers don't show the true extent of this at all, not just because of the Manchester thing, but generally. So I wonder, how do we stop people wanting to literally kill a member of their own family often, simply for supposedly bringing shame on them? Ishmael, when I said I was doing this topic, you said, oh, I'm looking forward to talking about this one. Tell me why.
Because I've had experience of honour-killing clients who've come to me because a young lady...
You've had... Sorry, say that again. You've had...
I've had young girls coming to me, contacting us, our organisation, saying, oh, my family are looking to kill me because I want to marry so-and-so. I've got a boyfriend, I've got a girlfriend. Can you help?
Goodness me.
Yes, so thankfully, there was a wonderful policewoman who was working in the community in London Borough of Brent called Victoria Michaeladis, shout out. She used to go around, before I got this email, she used to go around in the communities to the different churches, the mosques, the temples, and encourage women, if you're being attacked, report it, don't suffer in silence, don't suffer in silence. She was of Iranian and Greek heritage. So when this message came to me, I contacted her straight away. She got the girl to report it, and she got the girl sorted in a refuge. And it's happened a few other times. And normally, someone from the police have been. The police, I would say, they've recruited more women of colour to be straightforward with you, to go into communities, i.e. to churches, mosques, and temples, and encourage women to report these crimes. And some of them have worked in partnership with interfaith organisations. So I would say I believe that we're not seeing that there's an increase. I believe we're seeing more people reporting it. This is my opinion.
But do you agree with me? Because I don't believe that this shows the true extent of it. So I'll just give you some figures, by the way, because I mentioned 81% there. So they rose from 884 in 2016 to 1,599 last year. So that was the rise I mentioned of 81%. Francis, what's your view?
I would actually be very interested to see, number one, Ishmael's point, is it because people now feel more emboldened to come and report these crimes? They now feel that they're more able to speak out. And number two, what effect did lockdown have on this? What effect did people being confined to their houses? Because what we don't talk about with lockdown is the effect that it had on ordinary people whose life for them is very difficult, especially their personal life, especially when they grow up in strict religious families. And for them, going out to work, seeing friends is a lifeline.
Yeah.
And actually them being confined day in, day out to their houses and being surrounded by their family is actually dangerous for them. And suddenly they had no way out. They couldn't go and see friends. They couldn't go for a coffee and talk to somebody. They didn't have the sanctuary of the workplace. So actually, they were more vulnerable than ever.
Yeah, indeed, and I worry as well, Tom. I think that lockdown will have made this worse, but I do still think that this kind of scenario, this kind of dynamic, I mean, the thought that you would kill your family member, literally, when I was doing research for this topic, it kept coming up time and time and time again. It was a brother or a cousin or a father very often in these stories that had killed the girl because of who she had chosen to marry. And I don't get why an adult, a parent often, thinks that they have some kind of jurisdiction over who their adult child chooses to spend their life with. Your child isn't your property. It's not for you to dictate how they go and live their life into adulthood. Yes, of course, you can framework their growing up and stuff, but they do what they want as adults. Surely.
That's why I even struggle, Michelle, with the terminology honour crime, because there's nothing honourable, is there, about some of these horrendous cases that we've been hearing about in the media. I mean, you mentioned there the 1,200 or so so-called honour-related cases, but on average, 12 people, predominantly women, will lose their lives every year in this country as a result of one of these absolutely heinous crimes. And I think it's also important that we call out the fact that this isn't about British values, and sadly, these are often British communities, these are British citizens who are, perhaps because they're part of a diaspora where there's a different value system and different kind of cultural norms, it doesn't make them acceptable. But I think this is where we come back to education. What is happening in our education system when we have British citizens growing up who think it's right to engage in, frankly, medieval practices around, as you say, the ownership of people?
And don't you think part of it is as well, Tom, is that when you have taboo subjects, which, let's be fair, this is a taboo subject, people don't discuss them frankly and honestly because they're worried about being offensive, they're worried about being insensitive, they're worried about being racist. But if you don't discuss a subject frankly and honestly, you're never going to get to the solution, because you are not talking about all aspects of the topic. And I feel that's what we do with topics such as this. We shy away from it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And one of the sad issues is that many of the people that you see on the forefront in the media speaking on this issue, most of them are just opportunists. And they don't really, if you were to go to them and say, look, I got someone who's at threat of being killed, can you help, where can you advise me? They would say, sorry, I can't help you.
So where do you go then? So, I mean, you've just mentioned that in your work, you've had more than one occasion of a young girl coming to you saying, and I mean, I can't even fathom the concept that my family, my brother, of which I have 3, I cannot even fathom that one of those would want to kill me because of who I choose today. It's not within my culture, it's not within anything that I've ever experienced and probably never will. So where do you take someone like that?
So there's 2 ways. I firstly go to the community organisations. There's one called Carmen Havana, they're very good. One's called National Zakat Foundation, and one's called Asian Women's Helpline. Even though they're called Asian Women's Helpline, they help anyone who's a victim of this, because this is not only within Asian cultures, in Albanian cultures, travellers' cultures, and some Eastern European cultures as well. So those are the 3 main organisations I go to. So they always try. If, for example, they can't do it, or they're full, or whatever, then there's normally a women's community police department within the police force and local authorities. I go to them, and they normally get the person rehoused or get the person moved out of the borough.
But I think Tom makes a key point, actually, about educating, because to me it's just such a backward... It's just such a backward principle that you think that you can kill your kid. And this is the bit that gets me, because you think that they're bringing shame on you or your family and all the rest of it. I find it pathetic, actually, if I'm honest, that these grown men sit there and think, oh, my daughter is bringing shame on me. Well, why don't you man up a little bit and stop worrying about what these people think and how they judge you? Anyway, do you know, I can feel the temperature rising. Yes, anyway, this conversation we could have for a very long time, I'm sure. But those numbers are shocking, and it shouldn't be going on in this society. And I think it sounds like you're doing great work as well to try and help people. So, yeah, do keep that up. I mean, I wish it wasn't needed, but very sadly, it seems it is. Anyway, another topic that gets my blood pressure going, not going to lie. Thousands of children in Eastern England have been told to mask up when they return to school after half-term to stop the spread of COVID. This is apparently part of targeted local action plans. The schools in Eastern England will be asked to reimpose mask wearing in places and testing as COVID cases rise in places like Cambridgeshire, Peterborough and Suffolk. The measures were announced by the Health Safety Agency. But I wonder, what do you think to this? Do you think that masks really should be back on the menu for children? I do not. Your view?
I mean, I really struggle with this one because the advice from the World Health Organization is that children under the age of 6 should not have to wear masks. Their advice for children between the age of 6 and 12 years old is that they should only be asked to wear masks where you have a spike in local cases, in infection rates. Of course, difficult, though, because it doesn't actually put a figure on. Is it 400 per 100,000 like we're seeing in parts of East Anglia? Is it less than that? Why I struggle with it, Michelle, is because as a parent, increasingly I can see the impact psychologically that it has on my own children, the testing regime that's going on in secondary schools, going in wearing masks. I mean, these are ultimately potentially symbols of fear and insecurity, and is that something we really want to visit upon our own children? And I thought we had now got to a point in this pandemic where the key word is normalisation. We want to normalise again our society, and saying to children you should have to go into school and making them compulsory wearing a mask. Fine, if parents want to send their kids into school with, frankly, what looks like a chin diaper on most of them, they don't even wear them correctly, then that's personal choice.
Of course.
But should it be mandatory? I think, I struggle with that question.
Yeah, I don't struggle with that. I think the answer to that is absolutely not. And I'll tell you for why I think not. If you want to wear one yourself, if you want your kids to wear one and they agree, that's up to you. But I always think, what are you doing this for? Why are you making these kids wear this mask? Is it to protect them And my suspicion is, no, it's not. I often think it's to protect adults. Well, I don't actually think that the purpose of children is to protect adults. I think that is the wrong way around for me. That's a very basic premise that I hold in life. I protect my child doesn't protect me. Am I wrong, Francis?
No, I actually agree with you, Michelle. I think that the entire way that we're talking about this is something quite frankly ridiculous. If you look at the stats, the government always says follow the science. Well, let's follow the science. Kids are not at risk, or at very, very minimal risk from the virus. Minimal. To the point where the vaccine is more risky for the child to take than for them to contract coronavirus. Yet, the government brought in vaccines for children, 12 to 15. So you have to say to yourself, at what point are we going to start following the science? And at what point are we actually going to be looking after our kids and making decisions for our kids and not for the adults?
Ishmael, what's your view?
My view is that, from my experience, it seems to be a lot of teachers, because I've gone into some certain schools and I've gone into the staff room, and I'm hearing teachers saying, we could catch, a lot of them are worried that they're going to catch the virus from the kids. And I think this is coming from the teachers and the teachers' unions. I don't think, because a lot of teachers are very worried about it. So I believe if a parent wants to send their child and the child agrees with the mask, so be it. But I don't think it should be compulsory. But I know that a lot of teachers are very worried about this, and I think this is coming from the teachers and the teachers' unions.
Yeah, but this is, I mean, I'm being a bit of a stuck record, because this is my point here. I would suspect that pretty much all, if not all, of the teachers are vaccinated, double vaccinated, might have had the boosters, I don't know, maybe the third one. I would suspect that if there's vulnerable children, they will have had their vaccine. And then, so again, I just come back to, so what are you doing this for? What are you doing this for? Because if we've just talked there, and and I think pretty much everyone's agreed anyway, that children are not at significant risk of serious illness from COVID. People will come back at me. I understand, by the way, that there's different views on this, so I'm not saying that mine is gospel, it's just my own view and everyone's got a different one. But also when long COVID, people will come back at me and say, well, what about long COVID? There's a big study that was released, I think it was back in September, that showed that actually children are not as big a risk of long COVID as was originally thought. And I just, again, it comes back to me that what we're doing is masking these children to protect the adults, and every cell of my body flares up when I feel that, or when I say that, because it feels just so wrong to me. I do want your thoughts, by the way, and do get in touch with me and let me know. You can email gbviews@gbnews.uk. And I just, how do we get back to normal if we're insisting all the time with these masks?
I was thinking this today, actually. We were watching part of the COP26 conference and some of the opening speeches, and it was so doomsday scenario. The language, we're 1 minute to midnight, the end of the world. So we've got that going on with the climate. We've got a sort of sense of fear often around COVID and people catching COVID. And it just feels to me that we need to start dialing down some of this rhetoric, including the signals, like wearing a mask. For our school children, because it just reminds me of when we grew up as well. The fear narrative then was that the world was going to come to an end through nuclear holocaust, right? I mean, that was the Cold War, and that was the fear narrative that we had to grow up with. But do we really want our kids today, your kids, Michelle, mine, whoever's watching their children, to grow up in a sort of climate of fear, whether it's about the climate, literally, or about COVID?
Well,
and we need to dial that down.
When you look at the mental health challenges that kids have and how there isn't... Lindsay, by the way, has got in touch with you that's watching, saying her 11-year-old had his first ever detention today for not wearing a mask. See, this is...
It's just, it's insane. And again, we always talk... Nobody there is talking about hospitalisation. Nobody is talking about deaths. They're all talking about cases. Cases are rising, and you think to yourself, OK, cases are rising, and it's wise to keep an eye on it, but surely the most important thing are hospitalisations and deaths, aren't they?
Yeah, and I tell you, you've hit on an important point here, and I'm going to move on in a second, but cases, we always talk about cases without talking about the number of testing that we do. So really, if you want to focus on cases, you should, in my view anyway, be looking at what is the positivity rate of the testing that you're doing. Because if you start testing 1 million people a day, of course you're going to find cases. Of course you are. Anyway, I told you I could carry on. I could have this conversation. And by the way, I don't disrespect anyone's choices. People are getting in contact saying that they disagree with me. You're absolutely entitled to disagree with me. This is just my view. We've expressed ours on this panel. It's not gospel. There's no right, there's no wrong. People have different opinions. Someone here, Tom's got in touch saying, Michelle, you just mentioned that your sister and mum are nurses. Do you expect your sister and mum's patients to wear masks to protect them? Do I expect someone to wear a mask in a hospital? Well, I don't know. I suppose it depends on their circumstances, doesn't it? I'm not really sure. He's asking, well, why is that different from kids wearing masks to protect school staff? Well, I've just explained very clearly, Tom. I don't think it is the responsibility of a school child to protect their teacher. I think it is the teacher's responsibility, if they're so desperately worried about an issue that they've probably been vaccinated against multiple times now, if they are still so terrified of it that they think that a child wearing what is often a grubby mask, often worn inappropriately, if they think that that is going to save them, well, I don't know, what do I say to that? Anyway, keep your views coming in. I want to move on because we don't have much time left. Christmas dinner. What are you going to be eating on Christmas Day? I mean, if you believe some of the headlines, the answer to that's going to be probably not a lot, according to some doomsday merchants. But Heinz has apparently got the answer. They've come up, and if you ask me, this is a very clever PR stunt. It's got people like us talking. They're going to have a Christmas dinner in a tin. It contains turkey, pigs in blankets, Brussels sprouts, stuffing and potatoes. It's apparently all sold out. God only knows why. Who is buying that? If you've bought one of those tins, get in touch and let me know. Would you be eating that, Tom?
Well, I once spent a Christmas day as a student with just beans and sausages out of the Heinz tin to eat. I'm going to stick up for the tinned meal in this conversation. You know, Frey Bentos pies, do you remember those when we were growing up?
They're still around. What do you mean I still remember them? They're still there.
Yeah, I know, but that was a very working class thing, wasn't it, Frey Bentos? I thought we'd all become middle class now, Michelle, and we didn't
mince and onion
in a tin.
Yeah, and you do the tin, you go around the tin and up the top rises. Would you eat one?
Would I eat one? That makes me glad that we're at 1 minute to midnight.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, it does.
You can never be forced to eat this tin. What about you, Ishmael? Is that your kind of thing?
No, my home-cooked food, that's me, 100%. But
do you do the cooking?
I do the cooking on 1 day a week.
I do. I love it when people go, yeah, all I really eat is home-cooked. But what they mean is, as long as someone else is cooking it, then my favourite thing is
my missus doesn't like me in the
food.
kitchen. She doesn't like me in the kitchen, so she says I make too much mess. So I want to cook more. It was up to me, I cook 3 times a week, but she said, no, I could tolerate you 1 day a week. But saying that, with regards to the Heinz, what I could say is that I got a call from one of my friends who got divorced a few years ago, and he called me to say, you know, being a single man now is not easy. Do you know a lot of women can't cook? Okay, I know it might cause be a bit controversial. So they said, right, so I said, I'm trying to settle down, but I meet a nice girl, but a lot of them can't cook. So a lot of people who can't cook, whether they're male or female, this would appease them.
So are you suggesting that if you can't cook, that you're ruling yourself out of the dating world if you can't cook?
No, he wants a partner, a life partner who can cook.
Does he now? Yes. I bet he does, yeah. Your mate sounds like an absolute delight. I wonder why he's single.
He was just saying how hard it was.
Yeah.
But he was just saying that he's just shocked how many women he's met since he's been divorced that can't cook. He was amazed. So when I heard about
I tell you, your mate, I reckon he's going to be single for quite some time. Let's see, you can get in touch with me and tell me in a year's time whether or not he's still single. Anyway, look, I've just noticed the time. Men who just want women to cook. Goodness me. Whew. Good job he won't ever find me on a dating site, by the way. I'd kill him with food poisoning. Anyway, Tom, Francis, Ishmael, thank you very much for your company and your time. Thank you, dear viewers, for yours. I'll be back exactly the same time tomorrow, 6 o'clock till 7 o'clock. You have yourselves a good evening. I'll see you then.
Hi there.
It's been another blustery day across the UK, but overall the wind does ease somewhat over the next 24 hours. Clear spells for many, but further showers in places, especially during Tuesday. Low pressure is moving away. That's brought a strong wind during recent days and some fairly heavy rainfall. But as that pushes away, the isobars open up, particularly across southern parts of the UK, with the winds easing here and clear spells expected. Northern and western parts of the country see further showers arriving overnight, but away from those showers, temperatures falling. We're looking at perhaps a touch of frost in places as we start off Tuesday, and a few mist patches for sheltered parts of southern England in particular. The mist continuing through to mid-morning, I think, in places, but away from the mist, away from the showers, actually plenty of blue skies about first thing. It will be a chilly start to the day, but actually, with that sunshine, feeling pleasant enough. Showers continue for northern Scotland, western shores as well, and then a few making their way inland as well. So just about anywhere could catch a shower, but they'll be fairly fleeting, and away from them, good spells of sunshine, highs of 9 to 12 Celsius. Any showers inland then ease away on Tuesday night. Lengthy clear spells for many, but some areas of cloud and showers will drift south, mainly affecting western and eastern coasts, but one or two making their way into central areas. Away from the showers, once again under clear skies, a touch of frost possible just about anywhere really on Wednesday morning, away from coastal areas. But further showers will be affecting those coastal areas we start on Wednesday, with plenty of sunshine in between. And on the whole, Wednesday looks like a fine, bright day. The wind pushing showers into North Sea coasts, further showers for parts of West Wales, Cornwall, Northern Scotland, Northern Ireland. It will feel cold in that wind as well, and temperatures on Wednesday and Thursday below average across the country. By Friday, fewer showers, a little milder.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.